YouTube, welcome back to the Built on Boxes YouTube channel. My name is James White. I am the trucking lawyer. Guys, got an update for you. I graduated from the truck driving school that I chose here in Knoxville, Tennessee on Friday, passed the CDL exam. All good, gonna go Monday to take care of the paperwork side of everything at the DMV, but your boy is getting ready to climb in the truck myself and gonna do this thing. So it's taken me a few weeks to kind of get everything squared away. It was a little tricky trying to figure out how I was gonna do it and keep the authority active because it costs a lot of money for the insurance and that kind of thing and not run. But I figured it out, worked it out, and we're getting ready to get rolling. This video is gonna be about dispatching. Now, I'll be honest with you. I'm gonna tell you up front, I am not big on dispatchers for me. Because I'm the type of person that has to figure out how to do everything. I think that's the best approach. I think it's the best approach to learn how to dispatch yourself. That being said, if you're going to do box trucks, a dispatcher that understands box trucks and partials and how to keep your wheels rolling is absolutely invaluable. I first started this as a box truck company. I decided pretty early on that I was not going to be a box truck company. If I were to do it again and I was going to stick with box trucks, I probably would hire a dispatcher because it's a hard game. Dispatching for box trucks is a hard game, and you're better off finding an experienced dispatcher. Even if you have to pay them 10%, you're better off as long as you're very careful about what you know and how you conduct your relationship. But so what we're gonna get into is the 5 things that I think are super important for you to know and understand or do before you hire a dispatcher or in the process of hiring a dispatcher for your trucking company, but specifically for your box truck company. So thank you guys for your support. Please remember to like and subscribe. And now we're gonna get into the video. First thing and most important thing that you need to know / do in the process of hiring a dispatcher for your trucking company is to understand the role of a dispatcher. You need to understand what it is that a dispatcher does. A dispatcher is an agent for your company that primarily deals with communicating with brokerages to try to secure freight loads for you and try to keep your truck moving. You have to understand that you are giving a dispatcher an agency authority in your company, meaning that you are allowing that person, you're gonna sign a contract with them in most cases, and in the contract it's gonna say that you are giving them authority to agree to contracts on your behalf. There's no training that's required for a dispatcher. It's important that you understand that. Anyone can be a dispatcher. It's for that reason that there are a lot of not great dispatchers out there. Because there's no regulatory requirements for them whatsoever. They don't have to prove anything. They don't have to have a bond. They don't have to have insurance. They don't have to have authority. They don't ever have to be audited in any way. There's no governmental authority that ever checks up on them. They are completely unregulated. That's one problem. The other problem is they're completely unregulated and they're operating under your motor carrier authority with the FMCSA. So when a dispatcher calls up a broker and says, hey, TQL, I see that you have a load going from Atlanta to Louisville, Kentucky. Tomorrow it's say 14 feet long and it's 5,000 pounds. I've got a carrier that's empty. We'll take that load for $1,000. Okay. When they do that, they're using your MC numbers to agree to that load, meaning they are binding you as a company in contract. And so if you have another load booked that day, for instance, and they didn't know it, we'll get into that in a minute, you're double booked and you can't be in both places at one time, but you've given them the authority to do that, which means that you've got to breach a contract somewhere. It's important that you understand what you are actually giving a dispatcher the power to do. And it's important that you understand that they are an agent of your company. And as far as brokers know, they have the authority to agree to any sort of contract as it relates to carrying freight. You also need to understand that these folks are making an impression about your company with every single person that they talk to. So if you hire a dispatcher who's rude, or you hire a dispatcher who's not articulate or can't talk to people very well, or you hire a dispatcher that represents your company in a way that you're not happy about, that's something you absolutely have to take seriously, because you know, your reputation matters in this industry. And if you hire somebody that is not going to represent your company the way you want it represented, then it's going to look bad. And you might find, especially dealing with some of these small brokerages, that next time, like let's say you part ways with the dispatcher because you don't like the way they were doing things, when you call back up, you might have a hard time getting some of those loads until you recreate a new relationship or sort of undo what's been done to damage the relationship. So all of these things sort of lend themselves to the idea that you need to be very selective about who you choose to allow to sort of don the flag of your company, because that's essentially what they're doing. They're representing your company when they talk to these brokers and when they conduct business. They're doing it on your behalf. They're not doing it on their behalf. They're doing it on your behalf. So the other thing you need to know about the role of the dispatchers, you need to know that they get paid out of your money. So when most of the time, a legitimate dispatcher is going to take a percentage of the load. Usually a good dispatcher is going to be somewhere between 8, and if they're really, really good, they may be as high as 12, 15%. Now, I personally think you can find a really good dispatcher for around 10% on the high side, but you might be in the 12 to 15% depending on what they do and how good they are at it. There are some dispatchers out there who are absolutely worth it. The problem is finding them. Again, because we go back to the non-regulated thing, you're gonna see a lot of people out there on the groups, on Facebook, on social media, basically advertising for clients. If they are advertising for clients, they're probably new or they're struggling and they're trying to figure it out. And I'm not disparaging those folks. I've got a friend in the business named LaShonda who has an incredible group that she trains up. She offers dispatch training. If you guys are interested in dispatch training, reach out to me in the email. I'll leave it in the description and I'll put you in touch with LaShonda. She is phenomenal and she will put you on the right path, and she makes sure that the people that she trains are doing things the right way. But again, there's nobody out there regulating these folks, so they can kind of do whatever they want to do. And there are a lot of people coming into the trucking business, specifically in the box truck space, that have no idea what to expect. And so they don't know whether they're getting taken advantage of or whether they're not. They're just out here trying to make a living and trying to make this work, and they're leaning on dispatchers, and the dispatchers don't know what they're doing, or they're new, or they're inexperienced, or they're doing it wrong, or whatever. So that's another thing that you need to know. But the important part of that is to understand that the way they get paid is, let's say the dispatcher sets you up that load we talked about a minute ago, going from Atlanta to Louisville. Let's say that load paid $1,000. And let's say that your dispatcher was 10%. When the carrier pays you for that load, you pay the dispatcher that 10%. So if you're doing a factoring, most of the companies are going to use factoring. So like if I have $1,000 load that goes to RTS, and RTS pays me for that $1,000 load, I give $100. Maybe it's at the end of the week or whatever, however you want to do it, but you're gonna pay your dispatcher either however you choose to pay him. But my thing is probably you're gonna pay them through a 1099. So if they book 5 loads for me that week at $1,000, I'm gonna owe them $500. And so that's money that comes out of your pocket when you get paid, either through your factoring company or through the broker that you haul for. The broker doesn't pay the dispatcher. You pay the dispatcher a cut or percentage of what the load brings. The second thing is sort of understanding agency authority. Understanding that when you give somebody agency authority over your business, they have the ability to bind you in contract. They have the ability to make you legally liable if contract is breached. So if they are negotiating with a broker on your behalf and they tell the broker that you're going to do A, B, C, or D, and you do E, F, G, and H, then you've breached the contract, and they have the authority to get you into the contract. And we touched on that a little bit ago, but that's the second thing that's really important. You need to understand what agency means. They actually owe your business a duty. They owe your business a duty of loyalty. So if they're working for you, they should not be negotiating for another company on that particular load. So let's say they are an independent dispatcher and they work for, say, 3 different carriers. When they're calling and talking to a brokerage about a load for you, they should not be trying to use that time to broker a load for another carrier. They owe you actually a duty of loyalty. So let's say a lot of these dispatchers have their own MC. I don't know why, but they do. So maybe they own their own trucking company and maybe they're dispatching for them, or maybe they're dispatching for you. That actually conflicts with the duty of loyalty, because let's say that you own a trucking company and you're a dispatcher and you're dispatching for me, and both of us are out of the same city. Well, when you see a load on the load board, you owe me a duty of loyalty to dispatch for me. What do you think's going to happen? Are you going to book that load for your company, or are you going to book that load for my company? Because you actually can't be loyal to both at the same time. If you've got a load that pays a lot of money and you have two places that you're trying to advocate for, you can't possibly be 100% loyal to both of those places if you're doing the same job. So you need to ask these folks, when you're in the process of deciding whether you're going to hire them, if they are actually dispatching for other carriers, and how they separate the interests of each carrier that they work for, because it's really important. They owe your company certain duties under the agency law. So you need to make sure that you understand that. The third thing is, and this is really important, you have to communicate what your expectations are. One of the most frustrating things for dispatchers is when a carrier says, I don't care, just get me something. And then they get you something and they call you and they're like, well, I can't do that. I don't want to go that far away, or I don't want to be away from home every night, or I don't want to. You need to make sure that you are communicating what your boundaries are. If you're not willing to drive more than 500 miles away, then you really ought not have somebody looking for you a load that is going to take you out to California if you're on the East Coast. So, but they don't need to find that out after they've already agreed to take the load and committed your company to it. They need to know that up front. They need to know up front whether or not you are willing to do certain things, because they need to be able to use that information. And you really can't hold them responsible if you're not good at communicating what you will or won't do. So you need to make sure that you set proper boundaries, proper expectations, and then you need to follow through and do what you say you're going to do. So the fourth thing that you need to do is to stay out of their way. You know, if you're hiring somebody to dispatch for you and they are looking for loads for you, you probably should not be on the load board looking for loads for yourself. Because what if you book something and they book something during the same time frame? But maybe they've booked you 2 loads and they've got you a 3rd load lined up, and you've already booked something. And now you've gotten to a situation where you've agreed to one contract with one broker, they've agreed on behalf of your company to another contract with another broker, and you've got to break one of those contracts. And you as the company are liable for both contracts, and you can't possibly complete both of them. It's not their fault that they were out doing what you told them they could do when you were setting your proper expectations and building your boundaries and communicating clearly, and then you go off on the backside and do something that they weren't expecting you to do. You have to make sure that if you're going to hire a dispatcher, that you carve out an appropriate role for them, and then you stay out of their way. That is what makes it very, very frustrating for people who are trying to work on behalf of your company. If you're out there trying to do things that would be in their purview to do, either do it all yourself or define a role for this person and stay out of the way and let them do their job. And the fifth and final thing that you need to do is ask for references. Ask for carrier references, ask for rate confirmation. When you're looking at these folks' references, you want to look at rate confirmations that actually have their name on. Because you can get rate cons from anybody. Anybody you know in the trucking business, they'll give you their rate cons. Maybe they get them from a friend. You want to make sure that what you're looking at is authentic. Look at the rate confirmation, make sure it has their name on it, make sure they were the dispatcher, make sure that you check and see, talk to their carriers, talk to other people, and find out what actually experience they have to make sure that they're really, really good at what they're saying they're good at, so that they can make sure that they're taking care of your company properly. So thank you guys so much. That about wraps it up. Appreciate you. We're on the road to 2,000 subscribers. We'll probably have that by the end of next week. But really appreciate you. Please remember to like and subscribe. Shoot me an email. If you need help with factoring, the link will be in the description. Reach out to me, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.